Hello everyone, good morning from Boston. Bienvenue à tous et à toutes. Benvenuti tutti la famiglia, gli amici in Italia. Willkommen alle in den deutschen Ländern. Och hjärtligt välkomna alla i Sverige, Norge och Danmark. So, two of our students from last classes are playing again today. I'm very excited about the repertoire we're doing. And we have Denzel in the Philippines who's going to play Chopin for us, and later Malika from Graz in Austria will be joining us and she'll be playing this monumental work of Maurice Ravel's Scarbeau, the third movement of Gaspard de la Nuit. We'll have about a 20-minute break, perhaps even a bit longer, between the two students. The repertoire is very intricate and the explanations, I hope, will be sufficient yet enlightening. Denzel, please tell everyone about you, where you are, your studies, and your passion for teaching especially.
Hello everyone. Mabuhay from the Philippines. My name is Denzel Abarquez and I'm a pianist. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 2019 and was supposed to take my graduate studies later on. But when the pandemic happened, I had to stay in my country for a little while to hone my talents and of course to wait out the pandemic and hopefully I can apply again this year. So right now I'm busy teaching my students and competing in online competitions here and abroad. So I actually would like to thank Sir Paul for this opportunity once again. I played for him a month ago and now I'm back.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, what are you going to play for us today?
Today I have prepared two Chopin pieces. It's the Nocturne Opus 55 number 2 in E flat major and the Etude Opus 25 number 11 in A minor.
The Winter Wind, as it's called.
Yes.
Okay, let's get started. This piece, Opus 55 number 2, is especially dear to me, so I'm looking forward to this experience with you. Good start. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I have a question for you. Would you be kind enough to find me a rest?
In the piece itself?
Yeah,
Or in a very specific section, sir?
just find me a rest in the melody and in the left hand. If you can.
Actually, it's close to impossible. The melodies are so close together.
That's right. And this is perhaps your biggest problem. I have a theory about this piece, and I need to ask you first how much. You're so young yet, I don't expect you to be able to have much experience or in-depth experience with opera and Wagner yet. There are exceptions to this, of course, and I hope that you are one. Have you studied Wagner at all?
A little in
Wagner's
history
operas.
of music, yes, but
Right.
only in passing. I haven't taken the time to dive into his music deeper yet.
Well, it's enormous, and you're so young still. And we can all keep learning about and from Wagner, as controversial a figure as he is. But do you know his concept of in German, unendliche Melodie, the unending or unceasing melody?
Oh, I'm unfamiliar.
Well, this is central to Wagner's technique of composing opera, as of the fourth or fifth opera. And his technique was to have an unending melody. His ideal was to have an unending melody from beginning to end. And he made it work. And in my opinion, this piece is the seminal piece for Tristan und Isolde, which was he composed it in the mid-1850s. And it is for many consider this his absolute masterpiece and the first of his great Gesamtkunstwerk, the unification of all the arts in a work of art, in a work of music, under the title of opera. And he stopped calling his works operas, they became lyric dramas. And
I see.
the concept of the unendliche Melodie is something that I believe he got from Chopin and from this piece in particular. Because he was in Paris 4 times, Wagner. He hated the French, but that's all right. Everybody's allowed to hate us. We are a rather peculiar race, but I am the first to say it. But he was in Paris 4 times. There is no real account in the literature, in the historical literature, or in his memoirs, of having had much interaction with Chopin, but he was always at the opera. He tried to get his opera staged, especially Tannhäuser, and it was a flop, which is why he decided to hate the French even more. And he never made it in Paris, but not many foreigners did make it in Paris before, let's say, around 1880, 1890. When Paris became and opened its doors to the world with the international world's fairs that were going on, especially in 1900, but that's after this. I believe that Wagner, who was a tremendous intellect, knew everything that was going on around him artistically, not just in the operatic world. He hated Meyerbeer, as many people do, who was the major opera composer of France at the time, and he took a liking to the composers who were obviously the greatest composers, Mozart. But here in Chopin, who could really not write successfully for the voice, but no one could outdo Chopin in terms of how to write for the piano, as we all know.
Yes.
He changed the way we use our hands, he changed our systems of fingering, and he devised a harmonic language that has not ever been paralleled. And Chopin's harmonic language is the foundation for everything that comes after him, including Debussy, Ravel, Scriabin, the Impressionist movement, the Neo-Impressionist movement. We rely, or the composers, not that they depended on him, but they couldn't escape him. Without Chopin, we don't have Debussy or Scriabin. That's absolutely a given. And in terms of architecture, and in terms of Chopin's roots, is so complex, I believe that we may never understand fully the complexities of Chopin, especially in the mazurkas, because they're ethnically centered, and we have yet to do the proper research to understand which mazurka comes from where. Now, I'll tell you a personal story about nocturnes in general. When I was your age, at the Manhattan School of Music, I had a very good friend who was a few years older than me, a very good pianist from Warsaw, who had just emigrated to America. And we used to talk about Chopin a great deal because he played Chopin very, very well. And he said something that has carried me to this very day, which I believe, is that if one can understand and successfully perform Chopin's nocturnes, one understands all of Chopin, even the mazurkas. Because in these pieces, we have a fusion of everything that Chopin really is, of his existence. A very complex and essentially he was physically ill much of his life. He suffered from tuberculosis. He was, we could say, mentally ill, perhaps bipolar, because he had these incredible highs and lows. And he was a perfectionist to such a degree that for which we are grateful. But for his environment, it was, in terms of being a colleague and a friend, a disaster. But he threw out many of his manuscripts, so we really don't know what he was up to. We also have a problem with Chopin in that he was always looking to make more money, so that he would change the manuscripts that he would sell to various publishers to make more money by selling the same thing to 3 or 4 publishers. So we have sometimes 3 or 4 what are called first editions. So we really don't know which one is the authentic score, the authentic manuscript and the authentic Urtext, right, the original. When I studied with Nadia Reisenberg many years ago in my graduate program at Juilliard, I was doing the B minor sonata, and I brought in the standard, the classic, Paderewski edition. And she said that she had studied 9 editions of the B minor sonata herself to be able to come up with what she felt to be the original and the authentic way of interpreting or studying this, because there are differences in notes, there are differences in phrasing, there are differences in pedaling. And she said, I came up with the 10th edition, her own. So what we have here, I'm working right here from the new Polish edition, which I highly recommend. We also have many wonderful editions. Cocteau is very subjective, and he gives his opinions and very good fingerings and practicing techniques, an immensely respected artist and a consummate Chopin player. And of course the Henley edition, which is also extremely reliable. But this is the most recent and the most, in my opinion, authentic to the manuscript. So this is the one that I'm working from. May I ask which edition you're working from?
Currently, I'm working on the Schirmer's edition. I have yet to procure a better copy for now.
Please, forget that one. They were good for a while. They were good for maybe a half century, but that half century is long gone. And here we are with this. Now, back to the Unendliche Melodie. The problem we have in this particular piece, and which you demonstrated, I'm going to try and be as gentle as possible with this, is that we have the biggest problem is not to have the left hand interfere too much. The problem here is that the left hand is so melodically central as well as harmonically generic that we have to keep it very closely aligned with the melody, which never ends. Now, try and imagine this as a piece for violin and cello.
Okay.
And I use this example of violin and cello because the violin can vibrate. String instruments have vibrato, right? It's much harder for a flute, for example, or for an oboe to sustain a vibrato throughout this entire piece when they can't breathe. No wind instrument can survive this piece and keep it in tempo. So it would be, if we orchestrated it, would need to be for stringed instruments, all right? There is also the problem of ornamentation. Chopin, as you know, adored Bach and Mozart. These were his gods, right? And his composition teacher was German. So you have to think of Chopin as a multinational figure. He was French from his father, Polish from his mother, born in Poland. He left very young, when he was your age, went to France and did a big concert tour along the way. And somewhere along the way, the newspapers wrote that this guy from, this young pianist, this guy from Poland, was possessed by the devil because of all of his new harmonies. And that one simply did not have pieces at the time, or at least they thought, that should begin like this. This did not happen in the quadrate minds, especially of music critics, of the early 19th century. This language was so extraordinary that nobody could imagine any music could come of it. All right? In this nocturne, we have Chopin in his last years at the absolute mastery of what is known as cyclic composition. Cyclic composition is the reusing of motifs in various different guises so as to create a completely unified whole. And Wagner was the absolute operatic master of this in his leitmotif system. This, as I'm hoping to show you and our audience, this is where it all began, in my opinion. I have many opinions, and this is one of the strongest about, about Chopin. Now, it says lento sostenuto. That is a big problem. How lento do we need to be, and what has to be sostenendo? What has to be sustained? That's a very important, these are important questions to weigh and to balance out. It is a very expansive piece. Look at the left hand. We start here, and a few seconds later, we're already up here. So we're not dealing with, it's not that kind of accompaniment. It's an extremely expressive accompaniment. Nor is it in the sense of romanticism, it's way beyond something like the opening of the Schumann Fantasy, for example, which is all stuck in the same register. Or the Schumann Humoresque. This is completely unconventional. Nothing like this has ever been written, and nothing like anything in Chopin has ever been written or duplicated. It is impossible to duplicate Chopin. It is very possible to duplicate the language, the harmonic language, and even the emotional language of the 18th century and parts of the 19th century. But if you were a pianist in a vocal music course, a leader course, I would ask you to associate Hugo Wolf with Chopin. And this is something for you to study later on, because Hugo Wolf's lieder are probably the most complicated lieder ever written, because of the unification of voice, piano, and poem. Now, what is lento? How much lento and what are we going to sustain? That is your problem, because you cannot make it too slow.
Yes.
You have to think of this as a tiny opera, and with one unending melody, so that you must push the tempo a little bit and remember Chopin's concept of rubato. You are not doing enough rubato. Normally, I am the first person to say, don't do too much rubato. But here I am encouraging you to do more rubato and to breathe with it. It's an extremely mature work emotionally. You will play this all your life, and you will go back year after year, in 1 decade, in 2 decades, hopefully in 5 or 6 decades, and play it for yourself very differently, because it grows with us. When I was your age and I heard this piece, I didn't like it at all. I thought it was stupid. I thought it didn't make any sense. I took it up seriously about 4 or 5 years ago to perform in concert, and I was telling myself how stupid I was when I was 18 years old. Because this is an absolute masterpiece, right? You see how one changes in time. Start it again, please, Denzel, and remember that we're starting forte, and treat the B flat as a warning signal, or not really a warning signal, as an exclamation point. It's a better word in German, Rufzeichen. You know, it's an exclamation point. It's telling everybody, listen to me. And what I do is play it with the pedal and then re-pedal very quickly, so we have a slight echo. I lift my third finger, whichever finger I'm using, and depress again. And don't be afraid to hold it for longer than it's written.
I see.
All right?
Okay.
Remember, this is opera. Opera is sung by prima donnas, right? They like to take time with high notes to show off that they can do it. And Chopin was always at the opera when he was in Paris. He was one of the most regular opera goers in history. There's a very interesting article by a colleague of mine down the road near Worcester, Massachusetts, at Assumption College, Antoni Zielonka. He's Polish. He teaches French literature, but he wrote an article about Chopin, a very good article about Chopin the Listener, it's called. And he tabulated all of the history of Chopin attending the opera and his likes and dislikes. Interesting for you to read that. I can send you the link. But
thank you so much.
Remember that this is operatic, and this is a prima donna walking on stage and going, here I am. And then build into it. All right? No, not enough. No. Don't be afraid of it. It's not loud enough. He writes forte. No. Denzel, I'm not letting you off the hook here. You need to play forte. Don't be afraid of it. In a sense, attacca. Let me tell you something. Chopin is not a nice composer. All right? For many reasons. He's technically very difficult. He's emotionally devastating. And he's intellectually overpowering at times. And this piece has it all. So if he's not nice to us, we have to respect him, but we don't have to be all that nice back to him. All right?
Okay.
He's testing us measure by measure. All right? So please, think sforzando. He wrote forte, but you, because you seem to be very gentle with this, think sforzando. No, come from above. Come from above, and even play with your thumb and your third finger together if you need to. All right, now, it's not moving enough. And you have to be much more, as my beloved old teacher, Balsam, used to say, you have to be completely involved, total involvement. It of course can sing itself because it's so beautiful. It has no problem singing on its own. But you have to sing and breathe with it. You have to breathe these long phrases. And look how long the first phrase is. It's 3.5 measures, the full first phrase, right? And the left-hand phrases are essentially 1 measure on the offbeat. So this all has to be factored in. It's very complex. Now, sorry. Where do you think that comes from? Historically.
I'm actually quite unsure.
Mozart.
Oh, the fantasy.
And in the last movement. So you see the historical chain here. Mozart to Chopin to Wagner. All right? when I warned you that this was going to be a rather intense lesson, I wasn't joking. Don't be afraid, you will get it. You're so gifted and so bright that it will come. Now, it will move. Move it along. Don't be afraid of it. You know, and it has to be lebendig in German. It has to be alive. It has to be living. Don't let the left hand be metronomic. You can't afford it. Espressivo as much in the left hand, but not forte. Let the right hand dominate. Of course, it's the melody. But let the left hand be the best friend of the right. This is a piece full of anguish and agony. Full of it. In the F minor concerto, which I hope that you will play one day if you haven't already played it, he writes once in his entire life the words con duolo, with pain. Write it. He writes con duolo, with pain. This man is full of pain. All right? This nocturne is an exercise into how to get out of his pain. And at the very end, right before the very end, the three last measures, we end on a 6/4 chord, almost end on a 6/4 chord. This is a plagal cadence. It's a church cadence. It's confessional. This whole piece is a confession. He's at the end of his life. All right? And this is the symmetry of what he has learned and studied and perfected. It doesn't get more perfect than generally everything he wrote was perfect, basically. He was such a perfectionist. But this is, for me, the summit of his writing of nocturnes. They're all glorious, but for me, this is absolute perfection. Compositional and structural perfection, and in the disposition of the voices. So, give the left hand a lot of authority, number one, but don't let it overpower the right.
Yes.
Give it some life. As I said earlier, very cynically, and I repeat it, this is not... It has to breathe, and it has to be expansive. It has to just ooze affection. All right, go. And remember, this is forzando, not forte.
Okay.
Denzel, you're too slow. You're too slow. 1,
I see.
2, 3, 4. And really, please, give me a sforzando at the top. Pretend that you are a dreadfully egotistical soprano. There are plenty of them, and we love them. All right? Go. Much better, bravo, much better. Now,
I do
next
understand
problem.
where the tension comes from.
What?
Okay. Now I understand where the tension comes from. I find it really hard to apply rubato to pieces where the accompaniment is really stretching its limits. I don't know sometimes how to balance the sound. Sometimes my left hand sounds too heavy, sometimes too light.
But
it's
it's
quite
coming
interesting
along
to
very,
explore
very
it.
nicely. Now, we have another problem here. Look at measure 1, 2, 3, 4. The upbeat to measure 5. We have the entry of the alto voice. Right?
Yes.
And the alto voice is not just an accompaniment. Remember, this is a mini opera, all right? The alto is in competition with the soprano for attention. So they are not terribly happy to be sharing the stage, all right?
I understand.
Right, so you have to give some presence to the alto voice. And when we have this, appoggiatura, this is a rather angry alto who is competing for attention from the diva who's playing the soprano, who is the soprano. All right, this is
Yes.
not terribly conflictual, but you have to factor this in. And one thing to remember also, Chopin's use of the semitone, as we will find out later with Ravel and Melika, this is central to his composition. The semitone became an instrument of enormous expression. It always was. But Chopin was the only one who could use it lyrically and make absolute sense of a semitone scale. I explained this in an earlier masterclass. The B major
Yes.
Nocturne from Opus 9 who has ever heard that this is a melody? But Chopin can make it a melody, all right? Same thing here. It is melody, but there is a touch of angst, of anguish, and make these very sharp throughout the entire piece. And in the next measure, when you have 4 against 3, espressivo, don't give it away. In anything, in any register, any voice, any harmonic progression in this piece, don't give it away. It's all part of an immense, in a sense, Gesamtkunstwerk, but it's just for piano. It's part of an organic entity. You're doing very well so far. Start from the beginning again, please, and move on. Okay, Denzel. This quadruplet at the beginning of measure 7, the phrase marking is not a legato marking. It's a group marking. It's a grouping of 4.
I understand.
I would play those staccato or portamento, much more effective.
Okay.
Try it again, please, just to measure before and go continue. Now, okay, remember here. Remember the cardinal rule of staccatos, which I think I taught you last time or somebody in the earlier class. There is one legato, or but as my old teacher said, there are 25 kinds of staccati, and you have to figure out which one goes where. Now, the one for here is not the same staccato as the one Chopin wrote. They are different staccati. This one is portamento, and this one is a staccato. And the phrase mark is, again, a grouping marking, not necessarily
A legato marking.
yeah, a legato marking. One is mezzo legato or portamento, and the next one is staccato. There's more staccato, but not too much. All right? This is not a staccato type of piece. All right. Once again, please, from measure 6. Change the pedal twice, or take it off pedal. A little pedal on the first beat, on the very first, and then release if you need pedal. Denzel, it's too legato. It's too legato still.
Okay.
Okay, but it's not, again, it's not declamatory enough. It's not marcato enough. You have... Listen hard, listen closely to what he's writing. Look at it. It's bringing us to a change of harmony. And this piece is constantly moving harmonically. Don't give this away. This is the alto lady competing with the soprano lady. All right? Marcato. Once again, same spot. All right, again, I'm sorry to stop you so many times, but don't sentimentalize. There's a difference between sentiment and sentimentality. Many, unfortunately, do not separate one from the other. And it's very easy to fall into this trap. Chopin knows what he's doing more than you or me. All right? The point, our responsibility is to get as close to what he wants as possible. And this is, completely declamatory. No sentimentality here. Just if you want some sentiment. But rhythmic accuracy and harmonic clarity is what we want more than anything else. So start again here. Go on, that was good. That was quite good. And don't slow down.
Oh, sorry.
Now hang on. All right. Now, it's too sentimental. It's way too sentimental. I don't want you to play this like an etude or a Czerny etude or a Chopin etude. It's not a study. But it's the emotional structure, the emotional landscape is built in. You don't need to add anything. That's one of the nice things about this piece, because it's not a nice piece. It's a very difficult piece. But the emotional landscape is built in to the score. Don't add Denzel, all right?
Okay.
Or too much of you. I mean, we know you're there. We can see you playing, and it's nice. And you're a nice-looking kid, and we appreciate that, right? But the focus is Chopin. He needs you to play his notes in this piece, not much more. It's all built in. I'm sorry to dramatize, but I have to, keep you focused. Yes. All right. Once again, please. Now, from measure 9. Now, this is the highest point in the melody, in the melodic line. Look where we are. 3 octaves apart. It's glorious. It's just glorious because we've come from this restrained usage of the hands, rather restrained, close by, and now we're here. And he does it naturally. So, let this glorious burst of sunlight come out. All right? Once again, please. All right, now, once again, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is where he gets even more complicated for us. This rhythm here, this is mazurka rhythm. Have you studied any of the mazurkas yet?
The simpler ones, yes. The B flat, the one in the B flat.
They are so complicated. But, many people used to say that mazurka rhythm is on the second beat, that the second beat gets the accent, right? In some cases it's true, and in many cases it's not. This is why it's also complicated. But Chopin, remember, is primarily a dance composer. polonaises, waltzes, so many of them, mazurkas, 55 of them. All right? He's a dance composer, and he incorporates this mazurka rhythm into many of the nocturnes. Look, in the B major, it may seem like a nice, 6/8 piece, but it's not. The left hand has a quarter note marking on each of the second of the eighth notes. Of course, I'm exaggerating grotesquely, but the accent is the second beat in a nocturne. Yes. So is it a mazurka, or is it a nocturne, or is it both? And it's neither one nor the other. It is simply Chopin's universe. So when we have this here, forgive me, these figures. Think mazurka, think dance. Whether it's short or whether it's long, these appoggiaturas have to be brought out, and very clearly and marcato.
Okay.
All right? Now, please start from measure 9. Now, here, Denzel, you're not thinking like an opera diva. Right here. Hold it longer. Which opera singer is going to give away that high G just like that? Nobody. I worked in the opera studio at Juilliard for 3 years. I know something about singers. This is declamatory. This is bel canto, right? So
yes.
Don't give this away. If anything, hold on to it a bit more, but make the F shorter. All right? Once again, please, and let it move. Don't keep it stodgy. Okay, go on. I'm sorry. I haven't played this for several years. All right, this is very special here because this is where he continues to modulate and modulate and modulate and modulate.
Yes.
César Franck would have loved him because you remember the famous story with Debussy. He kept telling Debussy to modulate, 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 and Debussy kept telling him, "I'm very happy where I am, thank you." So he flunked him in counterpoint or harmony or something. So, anyway, Franck would have loved this. When you get to this modulatory section, if anything, speed up a little bit. All right? It's going to create much more intensity. It will reduce any attempt at sentimentality. This is a harmonic exercise. This is the unendliche Melodie, the unending melody at work right here and now. And begin much softer so that you can grow with it. You have an immense section where he writes nothing. He only writes a crescendo at measure 17, right?
Yes.
And if he wants to build a crescendo from measure 17, which at measure 19 becomes piano, so he wants you at pianissimo at measure 13. And this is almost like a little secret unfolding. He's being very coy here, very coy. So keep it pianissimo. All right, start please with the upbeat to measure 13. Denzel, excuse me. You must treat this very clinically. Don't get emotionally involved here. As I just told you earlier, he doesn't need your emotions in this piece.
Yes.
Right? He needs our emotions in many other pieces, and fully. In other words, look at the D-flat nocturne at the very end. one of the later nocturnes. These are much more straightforward pieces. They're complicated, but they're much more straightforward. To get the sense of depth and the direction that he wants, you cannot get too involved with this piece. It will play itself. I guarantee you, he knows what he's doing more than you do and more than I do. Just play in tempo, and if anything, it does it a little faster. Start again, the upbeat to measure 13. All right, now, this is very tricky. You have this incredible, it's incredible writing, but it's not an incredible climax, but it is a kind of climax in that we have this interrupted cadence at measure 19, crescendo, 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 on these A flats. He wants to insist on this and that. And the melodic line is, which is the opposite of, he's miniaturizing the central element, which is a semitone. And he's putting it in inversion here. This is part of the thematic unity, right? Insist. Third one. A fourth one, and it's full of this angst, but it doesn't mean that you should get involved with it. The angst is built in, all right?
Okay.
It's clear that you love this piece, and it's wonderful that you're playing it at such a young age, but remember, it has to move. You cannot hold it back because I feel it. It's nice that you feel it, but we want to feel Chopin, and you have to get beyond that, all right? Start again, please. From the upbeat again to measure 13. Denzel, please. Denzel, the left hand in the background. It's too prominent.
Okay.
Accent, 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 accent.
Sorry. I kind of panicked back there.
All right, you're getting there, you're getting there. Now look at the beginning of measure 25, please. All right, you have a forte. For the first time we have forte after the opening.
Yes.
Now here, this is again Chopin and his chromatic scales transformed miraculously into beautiful melody, all right? This is the high point. We come back to the highest note that he writes in this nocturne yet. The one he opened the piece with, and this is the closing of the A section. Now, again, what I keep saying is keep the left hand active. Don't let it slow you down. If anything, push the tempo with it. Let it guide the melody. and push it along. Don't let it, though, be obtrusive. It's just here it's a very effective accompaniment, but in the first, from 13, 14, 15, 16, as of measure 17, then you can begin insisting on the left hand because of the chromatic line moving. And what he's doing is, we have all this chromaticism. And again, another interrupted cadence. You're going to play it beautifully, don't worry. Right? I wouldn't be getting into this kind of detail if I didn't understand that you will, all right? Don't worry. Push it along, breathe with it, and enjoy it as much as you can, because it's not an easy piece to enjoy. It's glorious to play it, but it's not easy to enjoy it. You can enjoy it at the end when you play your final chorus, but not before. All right? All right, here, this very declamatory thing going on here. All declamatory. I apologize, I haven't played it for years.
No worries, sir.
There's your semitone again. All these chromaticisms have to be very clear, and this is declamatory. Stretch that measure maybe even an eighth note more. You can have a little bit more rubato here. The reason why you can't have much rubato at all in this section is because you're going to have an accelerando implied anyway with this business.
Yes.
This is the height of the first section, so declamato. Please start again from measure 13. Sharper. Imagine that this is the soprano who has kicked out the alto. She's alone here after a while. She's just kicked her out. All right? And she's saying, I'm here to stay. All right? You see, because his forte, he sustains it until the end of the first beat of the next bar. That's when the diminuendo begins. So you have to declaim that. Once again, measure 25. Denzel. All right, I'm sorry. This has to be pushed a little bit. It has to be a more diaphanous texture, a lighter texture, and you have to push it a little bit, but keeping it in tempo all the time. And why is this? Okay. It's because what he's doing is preparing us for even more extraordinary things coming down the road. Yes. This is very sensitive, very introspective music, and the listener has to be brought in closer and closer and closer and be made more and more and more curious But what is going on here with these modulations? Because he just, as I mentioned millions of times, he doesn't stop modulating. And you cannot exaggerate the left hand too much, and you have to keep it going, because if you keep it stagnant, if it slows down, nobody's going to understand anything. There's too much going on for it to be slower, or for the left hand to be deliberate. The left hand has to be proactive, but in the distance. It has to be sort of like in literature, there's a figure that you may have heard of, the Deus ex machina in the background. It's a secret spook that is, like an intrigue, a palace intrigue. Here, the left hand is your chromatic and harmonic palace intrigue going on. That's how you have to look at this, all right? Start, please, with the upbeat to measure 27. No, hang on. Hang on. Here comes this nasty alto lady again. The rival, the competition. She's back. She's back. All right? And the soprano does not like this person. She's stealing the stage. But you have to make her steal, you have to give her the part of the stage that she's demanding. Don't give this away. First of all, it's glorious, but give that alto voice exactly what's required. All right? It has to be quite important. Unfortunately for her, not as important as the soprano. All right? Once again, from the upbeat to 27.
How would you suggest I would play this part? I'm quite concerned with how balanced the sound should be. That in my head, the soprano should be heard more, but given that we are trying out, that both voices should be impactful. Is it okay if I make the alto voice more pronounced?
Yes, absolutely. Not too much. Oh. Give her enough space. You can take a tiny bit of time, but a tiny bit of time. The grace notes after the triplet in the left hand. But Denzel, very, very clear. No pedal. If you can play without pedal, that's best. Hang on. Now, you're playing the alto voice as if it's an accompaniment. That's wrong. It's not an accompaniment. As I'm trying to graphically demonstrate this rivalry between two singers on stage. These are, in Chopin's mind, two aspects of his consciousness that are fighting each other. Composers are not computers, at least the ones in this century, all right? Before Chopin released this manuscript, he must have, I haven't studied the entire history because there's not that much written on every single piece to this detail yet. He must have gone through hell and back before he came up with this final version. So every single note that any composer writes has meaning, or else it wouldn't be there. Especially a composer as serious and as disciplined as he was. Remember, his teacher was German. He may have had a Polish father and a French mother and be constantly in touch and in love with his native country, which he considered to be Poland. But this man was German trained, and the architecture is perfectly symmetrical. The melodic architecture is symmetrical. The organicity is absolutely perfect. And this is, comes from Bach, this comes from Mozart, from Beethoven. This is all very Germanically structured and conceived, right? Especially conceived. So when we have these two voices combating each other, they're there for a reason. And there are two separate voices. He didn't give an upper stem to the alto voice. He wrote a lower stem, meaning it has equal presence. You see? He could have written this part in 3 lines, which is a nuisance to read, but he could have. Remember a Schumann romance. In the second section, he writes in 3 lines. It drives everybody crazy. But he was nice enough not to do this for us here. But the alto voice is just as important because it's this emotional counterbalance. It is the angst that is fighting the attempt at peace. They're fighting each other, all right? That's why I said this is such an emotionally complex piece. Please, Denzel, try it once again from the upbeat to 27. Okay. Once again, same place, faster.
Sentimentality.
Faster. It's too self-indulgent. Don't put Denzel in this. Try again, please. Very good. Much better. Now, measure 35. Or sorry, the crescendo to measure 35. Here you can get back to tempo primo. Because remember, I asked you to play a little faster from measure 27. That's the rubato principle. You're taking time away, now you're giving back. In German, they would say die Krönung. This is the crowning glory. Right here. We're back. Happiness is back after the angst. Not for long, but it's back. All right? All right, this is in Chopin's little world, big world. In Chopin's world, this is happiness. And let it ring here. All right, once again, please take it from measure 34 if you can.
This one. Am I right?
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Wonderful. Much better. Now here, right at the end of measure 37, the upbeat. You're not thinking like a diva anymore. Here you have to be a prima donna assoluta. You know,
Okay.
right? I mean, think Maria Callas here. Think I Puritani, one of these great, phenomenally difficult and glorious operas with magnificent high notes. This isn't that high, but you get the picture. You know,
Yes.
and then, and you know, they're having this combat, the soprano and the alto voice. But here they seem to be getting along. The harmonies are working. And they're rhythmically in sync. All right? So they're getting their act together. Think about it this way, metaphorically. All right? There's a conversation going on. Before there was a duel. Now there's something of a conversation. All right, now please, again, the same thing and go on. Try the upbeat, from measure 34. Denzel, please, don't belabor this. Equal 7 notes.
Okay.
He did not write 4 plus 3 or 5 plus 2 or 6 plus 1. He wrote 7. All right? 7 on top of 6. It's not easy, but they have to be equal, 7 equal notes and declamato. All right, once again, please. Wonderful. Now, go back to measures 35 and 36. All right? The first beat of each measure, we have a group of 7/8 notes in the soprano. In the last beat, we have a group of 7/16 notes in the alto voice. You have to really make a demarcation there. The rhythmic demarcation is fine. The metrical demarcation is easy. One is 8th notes, one is 16th notes. But he writes staccato in the alto voice. Remember that this is very, very important, and this appoggiatura, this has to be very, very, very clear. All right? You're doing fine. Now, let's start right from the upbeat to measure 39, please. You're going back into your old habits. This is the former Denzel playing. Now, play Chopin, not Denzel, all right? The same principle as in measure 27. A little faster and piano, because, you know, the harmony is doing it for you, all right? Wonderful, really nice. Hang on. Now, you have to be rather careful here again with these changes of harmonies. But the crowning glory of this section is this extremely painful passage for the upbeat to measure 45 to 46. I'm sorry. This, again, one of the crowning glories of this piece. This is where you can be espressivo. One of the rare times when you can put more of yourself in here. Because, I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And finally, we have a real dominant 7th chord. And extending with this alto, confirming this happiness. What is also happening here is you have immediate relationship from here. You have to be very conscious of this, but bring it in subtly, very subtly. All right, once again, please, from the upbeat to measure 39. No. Whoa. That's a dotted eighth note. You're cutting it off. All right, wonderful. Really good. Now, remember, look at measure 47, please. He writes in the alto voice along with the whole, both systems, right? But the alto voice, he writes sforzando piano, meaning release the pedal and play it twice. The minute you play the E flat major chord, release it and come back so that we get the effect of the sforzando. Now, this is a recitative. These are what is happening in the alto voice is a recitativo compared with what's going on in the soprano voice. This is a dialogue, and it has to be brought out as a dialogue, and here is where it's at its most evident. All right? It will get even worse, even more involved later on. Take it once again, please, from the upbeat to 38, 39. And piano, 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 and let the left hand move. No. It's a dotted eighth note. Okay, Denzel, very good progress. Now, let's look at measure 52. When he starts this very nasty trill, how prominent is the trill going to be? Because he writes diminuendo. It's very hard to do.
Yes.
With all this going on around it. How do you make a diminuendo with this trill? Trills make noise. You have to control a trill very, very carefully so that it doesn't make too much noise, especially on a piano. So think pianissimo all the way and these subtle crescendos until measure 54. And then you can really let it go. Here an appoggiatura, sorry. And very, very sharp. Very decisive. Once again, please, from measure 45 if you can, or measure 44.
This one?
Yeah, it's fine.
Shall I continue?
A bit earlier, but it's fine where you started from.
Oh, sorry. Should I start?
Why don't you start at measure 39 again?
Okay.
All right. Let me start from the very end before this eludes me. These last four measures, don't slow it down. It's all in tempo. There's no indication. He writes in tempo at measure 63. And keep the tempo all the way to the end. Right? He doesn't need help. He doesn't need help from me, from you, from Horowitz, from anybody. All right? Chopin is fine here. You know. And remember, this is on a 6/4 chord. He's sustaining this pedal, this 6/4 pedal. That's all you need. 3, 4, with a change of pedal. He writes to sustain the pedal through the upbeat and the next few, and the next bar and the beginning of the final bar. But you don't need to follow him here. This is because he's using a different piano. Change the pedal on the upbeat, on the downbeat. Sorry. Now, you played just beautifully here. One nuance about the different editions. Look at measure 57. Some editions have an A natural or a B double flat. And I use it.
Okay.
I like
It's quite
it.
interesting to hear that sound.
You can take it or leave it, but I like to play this A. I would like you to imagine that you are Debussy listening to this or studying this, because he did. Bring yourself up 30 or 40 years in music history. This would be a piece that Debussy could have written at the early part of his career. We're no longer in the 1840s. This is so far into the future. And treat it, I don't know how to describe it without appearing a little bit, trite, but think, if it were possible to imagine Harry Potter in the 19th century. Of course, there were all these spook stories going on, and there always have been mysteries and the wonders of mysticism and all this, but this is very mysterious. This is mystical. It's ethereal is the word I'm looking for. It has to be diaphanous, very clear. Magic. This is absolute magic here after this chromaticism. And the genius of this tritone interval, which is what he's exploiting all the way through, is the tritone is a pivoting interval. It can bring us to almost any key. And he can take us anywhere here, Chopin. But what does he do? Instead of going to, he goes, finally, back home, back to E flat. This is the highest note in the piece. Sorry. We need to hear the E flats very distinctly. You don't have to hold them for 3 beats, for 3/8 notes. Because it's not easy to play all these notes underneath legato. Here is when we really need a nice legato in the alto voice. Because finally they're reconciled. This is a bell. A quiet little bell in the distance. And take advantage of the rallentando at measure 61, but not too much. And when he gets here, this little rest, that's the only rest we have. Isn't he nice? He's giving us a rest. Such a sweetheart, right? Isn't he nice? Right? Very elegantly, but give us that rest. Sorry. In tempo. Move forward. This piece has to move forward all along. All right, take it once again from measure 55 to the end, please. No, you're back to Denzel again, the old Denzel. Now, the left hand has to move. It's stodgy. Now here, Denzel, please. Sforzando, or an accent here. Espressivo. This is one of the leitmotifs in augmentation. All right? Once again. No. There's no change of tempo.
The rallentando doesn't last there.
What?
The rallentando only lasts until the arpeggiated chord. Afterwards, I have to go back in tempo already.
You don't have to lose any tempo. Everything is in tempo. He writes a rallentando, but it's only a slight rallentando. He doesn't tell you to go to adagio. You're playing almost adagio here. You're going to put your audience to sleep.
Okay.
All right? Start again, please. That section, measure 58. Keep the tempo. All right. Now, this thing here, there's a crescendo, meaning start piano. It's too loud. And this thing has to be completely diaphanous, all the way from 58. Very light, very, very airy, full of sunlight. You know, this is the most hopeful thing here. And these notes here that he's giving to the alto, and she's saying, ha, 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 I'm in this too. All right, there's lots of notes for the alto voice, and it's not jagged anymore. They're not fighting each other. These are just lovely turns that she's doing, this alto. It's very charming now. They're not at each other. They're happy together for once. All right? But here, please, there's just this one single rest, eighth note rest. And that's all he wants. He doesn't want to give you the luxury of time with that rest. As I keep saying, he's not nice, right? This piece is murderously difficult, intentionally difficult, as I've been explaining. It's so complicated, but don't make it trivial. This is probably for the general listener. This is all the general listener is probably going to understand out of this if they've had some music. This chorale, this quasi-religious chorale. He's taking his hat off, or maybe even bowing, as the Germans say, neigen, to his religious past, because he was born and raised a Catholic, or perhaps his father was perhaps Protestant because from the east of France. But nonetheless, this is a tip of the hat to his religious origin. Just a slight breath with this eighth note, his very, very magnanimous eighth note. Isn't the guy sweet? He gave us an eighth note rest. And we have to, say, thank you, Chopin, And as complex as the entire nocturne has been, this is semplicissimo. Absolutely as simple as you can imagine. Like an afterthought. And frankly speaking, I don't know why he put these last two measures in forte. I have always wondered why. Because for me, makes as much sense. But that's what he wrote. Because I have trouble with what he wrote, I do mezzo forte. I'm not going to be that nice to him. All right? I remember when I rediscovered this piece a few years ago, just a personal story for you, for everyone. I discovered this piece and I couldn't believe what I was finding out, what I was realizing. Then I went all through my history books and Wagner and all this, as I just explained. And I was furious. I decided that I was furious with him, but I was actually more furious with myself for not having understood this years and years and years ago. But this is to give you an idea of how complicated this piece is. Because when I was younger, there wasn't any of this, or nearly as much of this musicology and theory as we have today at our fingertips. Over the internet and the libraries, the literature has grown exponentially and tremendously. Right? So we didn't have all these complex interpretations, and we had complex interpretations by the performers. And listen to Friedman on YouTube; it's glorious. But we didn't have all this literature on these pieces, which is perhaps why I didn't grasp onto it, and I even disliked it. I think I told you. I did tell you.
Yes.
But a few years ago, when I started learning this, I was furious with myself that I had not picked up on this. And the neighbors could not believe that I was glued to this piece as if I was in a trance, playing it for 5 hours a day, trying to figure out what was going on. And I hope I came to some positive conclusion. I've adored playing it, and I love teaching it. This is actually one of the longest lessons I've ever given on it. But it is so complicated and it's so rewarding. it's one of the pieces where the complexity is really rewarding. When you will study the orchestral pieces by Anton von Webern, which is 12-tone stuff much later on, and very, very intricate, it's like a mathematician bringing serious math into music. You can't really understand it until you study it very much under a metaphorical microscope. It's in this spirit that you have to look at this particular Chopin nocturne, because compared with the rest of his pieces, this is monstrously complicated. Remember, this is a guy who wrote even the most complicated of his polonaises or ballades do not come to the integral complexity of this little piece. It may be short, 4 or 5 minutes long, but intellectually and spiritually, to get it organized in proportion and to have beautiful textures of sound, not colliding but working with each other, to bring out these rival soprano and alto lines, and to have the left hand, the cello line, really behave like a cello. And cellists will tell you, they have a great deal of trouble deciding on when they have to be very espressivo and less espressivo. And conductors have to be very careful with them, because it's a very powerful instrument. All right, the next time we do the etude, all right? Because we've gone an hour and a half at least now on this nocturne.
Yes.
But I want to congratulate you for a terrific start on this piece. Congratulations. You will have this for the rest of your life, and it will grow with you. But I hope I've enlightened a few aspects of it for you, and feel free to bring it back any time. But enjoy it, and enjoy it all you can, but take it easy with yourself. You know, like I keep saying to everybody, composers do not need our advice, right? Just take a distance from it and study it very, very closely and very intricately with, making sure that you're not overpowering one voice by the other. And you'll play it very beautifully in a few months, in a few weeks even. Excuse me. And I apologize that it's not completely in my fingers. I have been finishing a book which has absorbed me for the last 2 weeks. Next time, when you bring it, or bring anything, it'll be in my fingers, because I'm back to being an academic for the last 2 weeks and for the next 2 weeks. Thank you, Denzel, for playing. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, we'll take about a 20-minute break, and for everyone to catch their breath, and we'll give Chopin a bit of a rest. And Melika will join us with Ravel. So. Well, good to see you again. Hello, everyone. We're back. Comment? There's nothing online. Emma said we're not online.
There's a delay, but we're live.
Oh, okay. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you've had a good coffee. So, Melika is going to play for us the third movement of Gaspard de la Nuit, this phenomenal suite by Maurice Ravel from 1908, which is arguably one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult suite ever written for the piano, if you take into account all the technical, not just the technical, but the sonorous subtleties that are involved here. There is an immense cultural patrimony inscribed in this work. Ravel, as many people will recall, was a tremendous intellect and a tremendous connoisseur of art and especially of literature. And these poems that inspired the suite he would be obscure were it not for Ravel. This post-symbolist poet, Aloysius Bertrand, not even post-symbolist, he is considered to be the father of symbolism, but by literary critics he is so advanced that some look at him as post-symbolist. It's rather strange, but literary critical theory is often very flexible and very confusing. We have several generations of artists, writers, and the composer, obviously, welded into this piece, which is quite extraordinary. Just look at the dates. You'll have on your screen the English translation of the poem, of the Scarbeau poem. You'll also see a graphic by René Magritte from 1965, inspired by the poem. And probably we'd heard the Ravel suite many, many times. But the expressionist, if you want to call Magritte this, expressionist painter, modernist in the extreme for the era of 1965, was inspired by Gaspard de la Nuit to produce this painting that you see called Scarbeau. So, let me read you the poem and give you the key words here so that when Melika plays, you can perhaps latch on to this extraordinary extrapolation by Ravel of all these symbols that he almost choreographs in conjunction with the symbols within the poem. I'm not going to read the French to you because many people may not understand it, but it's online and it's very, very accessible. First of all, Bertrand has been inspired by E.T.A. Hoffmann, who is just one generation before him. The very famous romantic poet, playwright, and also composer that we know very little of as a composer. But E.T.A. Hoffmann was born in 1776 and died in 1822, a very short life. And Bertrand was born in 1807 and died in 1841, also a very short life. And it was the nocturnal visions of Hoffmann, which inspired many, many, many composers, including, of course, Schumann and his Kreiseriana. And here, for Scarbeau, we have a derivative, an inspired derivative from Hoffmann into Aloysius Bertrand. So he's taking from a French translation of the German original to create this poem, which is unbelievably subtle, and which inspired Ravel precisely because of its linguistic subtlety. From Bertrand, we end up with poets like Mallarmé, Baudelaire, and Verlaine, and the whole Impressionist or Symbolist school in French poetry, which inspired the major composers and every composer, basically, for the generations from 1860 on. And there are dozens and dozens of them, and you can't get around it. You cannot, in French music, get around the relationship, the very tight relationship between literature, art, and music. It was a fusion of these minds that constantly welded together what became the grande époque, la belle époque, to produce by 1900 one of the greatest fusions, éclosions, the explosions of artistic fervor anywhere in the world. Paris in 1900, or by 1900, was the artistic capital of the world. Everyone went there for training. Every artist went there to get inspired and to expose, especially at the World's Fair in 1900. Remember that between 1866 As of 1866, Paris enjoyed 5 World's Fairs, the biggest one being at the turn of the century in 1900. But let's go to this poem now, in English. Oh, how often I have heard and seen him, Scarbeau, when at midnight the moon glitters in the sky like a silver shield on an azure that would be blue, an azure banner strewn with golden bees. And we have to remember these words, silver, golden, and bees all together. Azure, the color of the sky. How often, and he keeps repeating how often, how often, how often, which is key to understanding how Ravel unites this piece in its various sections. How often I heard his laughter, buzz, that's a very key word here. You will hear the buzz at the very beginning of measure 2 in the left hand. Medica, can you please play measure 2 for a couple of measures?
Whoa.
That's measure 1. All right, now without the right hand, please. Without the right hand, just the left hand. Now add the right hand. And now add the right hand.
Which right?
Yeah. Okay, back to the poem. Okay, thank you. Back to the poem now. How often have I heard his laughter in the shadow of my alcove, and his fingernail grate on the silk curtains of my bed. How often have I seen him alight on the floor, that would mean drop onto the floor, pirouette on a foot, and roll through the room like the spindle fallen from the wand of a sorceress. Focus on all these symbols, please. Alight, pirouette, roll, spindle, fallen, wand, and sorceress. Do I think him vanished then? The dwarf grows. That would be Scarbeau. The dwarf grows between the moon and me. Look at the distance between one and the other. Like the belfry of a Gothic cathedral, a golden bell shakes on his pointed cap. When Medica will get to the stratospheric trills in the high register, you will understand this one. But soon his body becomes blue, translucent like the wax of a candle. His face pales like the wax of a candle's end, and suddenly he is extinguished. Medica, could you please play us the last few measures?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can play from there. Just yes.
Okay, thank you. What he's done here, can you please play us the middle voice? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. From 11 measures before the end.
Yeah.
Just the middle voice, please.
And then it's already something
This
else.
is the principal
The
theme
theme.
in augmentation as he recalls it
Yeah.
at the very end. Okay. Now, if you look also under your screen, you'll see the painting by Magritte. Take a good close look at how horrific it is. It's frightening. So, Scarbeau is essentially a nightmare that Ravel is bringing to life. All right? And not only is it the story of a nightmare at the piano, but it is a nightmare to play it. As we can all tell you, it is really quite the piece. It's perfectly playable with a great deal of very advanced technique, but Ravel, like Chopin, is merciless. He does not care how we feel. He's got a message to project, and he is doing it very, very cleverly here. So, Medica, would you please play for us?
Yes.
Scarbeau, third movement of Gaspard de la Nuit from 1908.
Do you want me to play it through, or you will interrupt me?
No. Through, all the way to the end.
Okay.
I will make comments on the score and bring them to you afterwards. Excuse me. Sorry. I have to interrupt you right now. It's already
Yes.
too loud.
Well, yeah, for this room and for Zoom, of course, but
Yeah,
for
okay.
bigger hall, no.
Think quadruple piano here. Quadruple piano. Brava.
Thank you.
Now, I imagine that you're using the original edition but in photocopy or reproduction.
I'm using Urtext Henle Verlag.
With Henley.
Yes.
Oh, so the measures will be completely different because in Ravel's, in the original publication, which I have here, the first edition, there are no measure numbers, so it may be a bit problematic. But essentially, there are two things here, general observations. In my opinion, it's too fast. It has so many notes that they need more clarity. And if you play too fast, we don't get the clarity and the sharpness and the bitterness of the sound that he wants. I hate to generalize, but remember that the French the French technical school used to be quite different from the German or the Russian school. And it was, French pianists were always accused of playing with a much lighter tone, not deep enough, not deep into the keys enough, and very much, finger exercises like Anon, for example, or Stamati. They were known for their gloriously fast fingers and sometimes rather superficial tone. This is part and parcel of this scheme here, this tonal scheme. But it is, for my taste, quite a bit too fast. And because we need still to hear the melodies where they come in and out, from one voice into the other, from the left hand into the right hand, and right hand into the left hand, and back. Also, you can have some more breaks, Luftpausen, between phrases and between these technical feats that he asks for. When he writes pianissimo, he means it. But remember that he's writing a pianissimo for the instrument that he knew, which would, in our case, amount to a triple piano, because our pianos are much more powerful than the ones he knew, even in 1937 when he died. The pianos that have been built since 1937 are completely different. This Bechstein is from 1937, but it's been rebuilt twice. So it actually sounds like a much more modern piano. But when I bought it, it had not yet been rebuilt, and it did indeed sound like a weaker instrument from 1937, despite the fact that it's a German piano. But the French pianos, Erard and Pleyel for the most part, were even more delicate in sound, delicate in construction. These are essentially the instruments that Ravel worked with and knew intimately. So I would suggest that, number one, tempo. Number two, the tone. Despite when you get to forte and fortissimo, of course, it has to explode. But the explosions can only be as successful as the leggiero leading up to them. So you have to be very conscious of lightness of touch so that the explosions come off like a bang. Otherwise, they're not explosions. And remember, this is one, long nightmare. I mean, it's a nightmare to play, but it's a nightmare to live through if we study the poem quite accurately. Now, keep the left hand as quiet as you possibly can. Everywhere. In the chords, in the oscillations. And look at, first of all, theoretically speaking, look at the opening two chords, or the opening intervals between the top of the first chord and the top of the second chord. What's that?
Yeah. It's tritonus.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's tritonus.
Tritone.
Yeah, I said it in German.
Don't worry about it. It's the devil's interval.
Yeah.
Right? And this is clear from the beginning, what Ravel's orientation and Ravel's inspiration from the poem, and later Magritte, from everything going on around it. All right, let's start again, please. A little slower. Remember, he does not write quick. He does not write quickly. He doesn't write andante or andantino or anything. He writes modéré. And that's not a question of moderate in English or moderato in Italian. Modéré is here more of a mechanism in French. It's a mechanism of application to moderate as a verb. To moderate and modulate your tempi. To appropriate the tempi according to the voicing and the structure and the melodic line. It does not have to be quick because he does not want it to be quick. Years ago I put in a metronome marking of 92 to the measure. which is borderline quick. But don't play it too fast or you will lose the piece. It doesn't have to be fast because, as I said, and as you can see and everyone can hear, there are so many notes that it will seem fast just because of all the notes. Now take a bit more time to give us the clarity of your wonderful technique so that we can really grasp the meaning of this piece, this very fearful piece. All right, please start again. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's Zoom and it's the room.
Yeah.
Good diminuendo, yeah. All right. Hang on. Hang on. Melika. Melika, please. All right, sorry, I tried to stop you, but right, after the second fermata, please.
After the second what?
Fermata.
You mean yeah, after this one.
Right. This would be the second fermata, right after this. Right. Hang on. I have to explain a couple of things
Yeah.
here. He writes 2 measures or 3 measures later on accélérant. That's where you begin your accelerando.
Yes.
Keep it very, very quiet because the crescendo marking, he wants you to crescendo only a little bit and then get back down, piano subito.
Okay.
6 measures later, 6 or 7 measures later, when he writes vif, when he writes for the first time a real tempo indication, quickly, vif. But it's still piano subito, and all of a sudden, in the space of 4 short bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 short bars, you're at fortissimo and then back down to piano, pianissimo.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very critical here. And this is why it should not be too fast, because you won't have enough time to build up to fortissimo and back down to pianissimo. You see? All right, now, the next section, after the 2 measures silence. When he writes au mouvement and vif,
Yes.
it means lively. It doesn't mean presto, it doesn't mean allegro, it doesn't mean prestissimo. It's a state of mind. Vif, it means active. Right? When something is vif, something is active. It means it is living. So it's mezzo forte and not more. And remember, it's mezzo forte on his piano, not ours. So keep the tone level in proportion. Could you please start again from right after the second fermata? Hang on. All right, now, right when he writes vif, when he writes pianissimo subito,
Yes.
that is an indication that you can reduce the tempo. He writes en accélérant. That doesn't mean you have to keep pushing it because he stops the accelerando with vif. So you're in some kind of tempo here. All right?
Yes.
And so take a reduced tempo so that you can achieve the pianissimo, which is impossible to achieve at a high speed if you just keep going and going and going. Take a Luftpause before vif. as you get back, hang on, as you do the diminuendo back to pianissimo, take time.
Yes.
You can take time to get down to pianissimo again.
But if yeah.
Hang on now. Melika, please. Think of this fortissimo as a sforzando and attack it.
Yes.
Attack it brutally.
Okay.
You have this semitone leading up to the seventh. That is your leitmotif for the entire piece. So attack this chord with all you can. Remember, you're in the middle of a nightmare here.
Okay.
All right? So begin mezzo forte, not too fast, and fortissimo, fortissimo. Hang on. Why are you romanticizing this? It's not Chopin.
Well, I'm taking a bit of time.
Don't take any time. He doesn't need it and he doesn't want it. It's still too sentimental. It's still there is an inkling of sentimentality here which you don't need. Hang on. You must know the expression without wanting to appear with any inkling of racism, Chinese water torture, or just water torture, right? This is exactly what's in the poem, gnawing, like these bees, and gnawing at your brain. There's no sentimentality in this piece at all, nothing. Forget the word rubato unless you need it to slow down for technical reasons or for reasons of effect. Just forget that there's any emotion here. There is only one emotion, fear. And that is what you have to achieve. All right? Now, once again, from Au Mouvement, Vif.
I really don't know how to, because I mean, it's weird. Sorry.
Sorry?
It's weird to play without any, I don't know.
Well, I don't see espressivo written in the score. If it's written somewhere, point it out to me.
No, but I'm also not playing it that espressivo.
I think so. But anyway.
Okay, wait a second. I mean, I don't know. I don't know actually how to achieve this. Should I just keep the tempo? I really don't know how to achieve it.
Well, the tempo is fine right now. Just no faster than this. Absolutely no faster than this.
Of course not, yeah.
But don't make any...
Can you play it once?
Sorry?
I don't get this idea in my head. That's why I don't know how to perform that.
Well, try it. Try it.
No. I don't know. I don't like it. What do you say?
That's fine. Keep going.
It's fine?
Yeah, it's a bit too. I mean, it's hard over Zoom. It should be a little lighter in texture, but it's the Zoom and it's the room. So keep going. It's fine. But remember,
what should
you're
be
going down to
lighter?
piano.
What should be lighter?
Sorry? The left
you
hand should be a
said-
bit lighter.
Okay. I will then play the second line.
All right, now hang on. This incredible thing between,
Yes.
this is bees. If I've ever heard an incarnation of bees at the piano, this is a bee. These are bees buzzing away. It's unbelievable what he's achieved here,
Yeah.
right? These bees are amazing. They're even having a dialogue here. All right? Keep it as quiet as you possibly can. And
Okay.
very, very clear, the left hand. And he puts a stem on the downbeat. Very light. But make sure we hear the
Yes.
B. Okay. Hang on. All right. Very good, except it's not pianissimo.
Not this. Yeah.
Before that, right here. That's all pianissimo. Everything is pianissimo for about 12 measures until you get your crescendo.
Right?
Hang on, it's actually it's coming. It's coming. It's very good. Now the run up to here,
Yes.
it has to go to pianissimo. You're
This
giving
one.
it an accent. Yeah, but you see, the measure before you're at forte. Go down to
Yes.
mezzo forte or less for the run. Too loud on the run.
Wait. The run should be less than forte.
Yes.
Okay. Oops.
Now I want to decrescendo to pianissimo. Just a minute. Meaning that you need to take it a little slower. Your run is a bit too fast. Try it again. Start even softer. Once again, even softer. Start even softer. No. Why are you giving it too much accent? You're giving it too much accent. Now softer. Softer still. Almost. Good. Keep going.
Wait, now I need to play.
Crescendo. Good crescendo. Now you can pile it on. Now you can pile on the
Okay,
notes.
sorry, I thought you interrupted me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Same.
Whoa.
Yeah, same thing.
Fortissimo. Just a minute now. All right. After this run, these octaves,
Yes?
he's going into this very cerebral section at pianissimo. You need to prepare that pianissimo, and he writes sourdine, soft pedal, right?
Yes.
From piano to pianissimo, there is very little time, meaning take it slower from piano to pianissimo. A tiny bit slower. There you go. Much better. Now. All right, now. think orchestrally here if you can. You have two textures going on,
Yes.
right? Think in the orchestra, perhaps woodwinds and upper brass or a combination, but very light woodwinds. But you have the harp going here. Very light for the E's. You have two different textures that you have to respect. All right? Once again, the same. Melika, excuse me.
Sorry?
This is too short. The Auftakt is too short.
This.
Yeah. Yeah. But pianist, triple piano, he writes. Triple piano. Right, now, hang on. In the left hand, look what he writes. Triple piano, and then he writes très fondu et bien égal de sonorité. Fondu means blended in.
Yes.
Eingeblendet. Nicht eingemischt, sondern eingeblendet. Alright? Das ist keine Mischung, das ist eine Blendung. Très fondu et bien égal de sonorité. In other words, the égalité is the equalness is between the voices here. The E's have to be perfectly equal. That's what he wants. And they have to be equal in timbre at a certain point. In the middle of this, they have to be equal in timbre with the chord. All right?
So, wait, with the chord.
I believe that it's a little bit ambiguous, but these, he writes that because he's separating the hands, right?
Yes.
So the equal sonority is between the hands doing these broken chords, this broken arpeggio. Be
Yes.
very careful that the sonority is equal between the left hand and the right hand.
Okay.
Now, hang on. Do you have a middle pedal on your piano?
Yes, I have
All right. Try and use the middle pedal for this.
middle.
The middle pedal. Keep the chord on the middle pedal and then use the damper pedal very slightly for the broken octaves.
Oh shoot, what to each leg? Wait a second. And then, how to keep both of these pedals and then still have... Or you want me to play this without pedal?
Without pedal would be best.
This. Oh!
Genau. I think you're getting it. Don't you just hate that B? You
Don't I just hate what? I
the
didn't
bee.
hear.
The bee, the insect. You have to hate this bee. It's so annoying.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Like, you have to make this bee more and more and more annoying. And this is when it gets to its apex of being annoying. All right? It's coming along quite nicely now.
But tell me something. From the measure 153, 4, 5, 50, 156, where I have this, then shouldn't I be taking also these chords with the middle pedal?
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Like the whole section before.
Yes, absolutely.
That's actually quite a good idea. Great.
Who would have thought?
Okay, should I do it once again? I actually like
go
this
on.
very much. I don't know.
There is a lot to discuss. Keep going. Keep going. That's thought.
Okay. Nah.
Melika, it's pianissimo, please.
Yeah.
It's beginning to sound like a fight in the kitchen with clanking pots and pans. No. Keep it pianissimo. And keep it slower so that you can achieve the pianissimo. Hang on. The chords, these chords.
Yes.
Remember what Liszt said about chords and octaves? That you throw them out of your sleeve, he would say. Just release them. As if it's junk. Just release them. Hang on. Another thing. Your thumb is too loud all the time.
This one.
Yeah. Both thumbs are too loud.
Yeah, I think I should have more of.
Yes, but not too much. Enough.
Yeah, but still more than the top.
Right. Hang on. We have a different thing coming up here. We have a change of harmony.
Yes.
Right? Use more pedal here. A little bit more pedal.
Uh-huh.
And keep changing the pedal. Hang on. You have a double forte coming up. All right?
Yes.
He brings you to one forte climax where you can do a bit of an allargando. Right here.
Yes.
Do a bit of an allargando here. Right? When you're going to from mezzo forte to fortissimo, 4 measures later, keep the tempo rigidly, strictly. Keep that tempo strict. When you get to your fortissimo, take a bit of a time and attack it. All right? Once again, please, from the first mezzo forte. That chord is too loud. It's too loud. Yeah. All right, now, when you have this double forte, you need to make a really big accent in the left hand on the lower F sharp, right here.
Okay.
And. In 3 measures beforehand, you have in the left hand. We need to hear that progression. Just a minute. Again, excuse me. Your mezzo piano is not mezzo piano. It's mezzo forte, at least. Be careful.
Mezzo piano where? Oh, this one. Okay. Yeah. Where should I start? There directly or?
Wherever you're comfortable. When he writes un peu marqué, just before that, the measure before, all right? If you can take all those 3 notes in the right hand on the downbeat.
Oh, these 3 notes
Yeah.
in the bar before.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it has to be absolutely pianissimo, and we have to hear that staccato.
So,
Yeah, and you can take a tiny Luftpause there, but we have to hear that staccato.
so you mean that just because of the Luftpause?
I'm sorry?
You mean that because of the pause or whatever?
Well, because
like,
you're preparing the listener's ear for the next staccati to happen.
okay, okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, hang on. When you've got your B buzzing away here at triple piano,
Yes.
give us a bit of a Luftpause so we can be ready for the B.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Hang on. Here, this is a fantastic arpeggio. It's glorious.
Yeah.
Take time with it so we can hear and savor all these notes. The lower pedal point, you need to sustain it all the way through and keep it on the middle pedal.
Oh, this one. Okay. Wait.
That on the middle pedal and the descending arpeggio on the right pedal.
In the measure 228 or 233.
I don't have measure markings, I'm afraid.
Can you play it?
Um,
Is it from up? Or you mean
yes,
from...
that's the measure I'm talking about. But you need to be
Okay, good, yes.
triple piano, and here, this has to be on the middle pedal.
Okay, wait a second.
And you can keep that on the right pedal.
But then I don't have an extra leg to press the sustain pedal.
Then you have to do the triple piano with your fingers.
Okay, wait a second.
So you keep the D sharp with the middle pedal. With your fingers you do the triple piano, and with the right pedal you do this arpeggio. Now, write in your music. Take your pencil and write in the music on top of the triple piano, precipitando.
Can you repeat?
Precipitando. Precipitando. Precipitously.
Yes.
A kind of ad libitum, but in tempo.
Okay.
But with the impression of falling off a cliff. All right? Once again, a few
Yes.
measures before that.
Oh, wait. No, I messed it up. I hold the middle pedal with left hand and I do the triple pianissimo with my hand, with fingers, without left pedal.
Yes, without left.
Okay. Yes. No. Oops. Now I had a little bit of residue.
Then when you get to the forte, remember you're going down to forte and back to piano. You're going
Yes.
from forte to pianissimo in two measures.
But I could then leave the
Yes.
middle pedal
Yeah.
and put the left pedal
Yes.
through the...
Yeah. Too loud. Too loud. Still too loud. Erika. It's way too loud. Way too loud. Keep the soft pedal down all the time.
Yeah, I have it. Maybe for the Zoom.
It's way too loud.
Okay, let me try again. Here I could do the same thing.
Good.
Whoops.
Okay, hang on. Now, this was really wonderful. You're really getting it. This was really wonderful. But the right before this descending passage here to triple pianissimo, when you get back to that whole
Yes.
thing has to be very, very clear. We have to hear the nuances and the differences in harmonies between the right and the left hand. Take it slower. It's already very, very fast and you're doing it very, very well. But take it slower here. Start, please.
Okay.
Start, please, at, I have no measure numbers, I'm sorry, at the double piano when he's in this register. Yeah.
Right?
Yes, right there, but a little slower, a tiny bit slower. Quiet. Quiet.
Oh, that's still in piano. Wait.
Now, hang on. Here we have, this is perhaps the only time in the piece where you can be
Yes.
slightly espressivo.
Yes.
And very slightly espressivo. Not much. This is a bit Wagnerian and a very tiny bit Wagnerian. Right? Da, da, dee, da. You know, do not imagine that this has anything to do with Tristan and Isolde or Tannhäuser or any of these. This is just an inflection. All right? Just
Okay.
a bit of cynical espressivo, because this is a very cynical piece, and the poem is very cynical.
Yeah, look, I imagine it like as a waltz. Like if this man would just look at the Scalbo and all of his pirouettes and so on, and he's afraid, but at tiny moment he likes it. He likes this dance.
It's a good
like
analogy.
at this tiny moment.
It's a good
And that's
analogy.
this
You
place.
should study Ravel's later orchestral piece, La Valse. And this is a very cynical spin on the Viennese waltzes, but this has nothing to do with it. But once again, take it from the forte arpeggio going down and to triple piano in 3 very short beats. Hang on. Melika, I do not hear 12 equal 30-second notes.
Okay.
You want to hear this rest. Right now, when you get down to triple piano, Luftpause, it's the beginning of another section.
Yes.
Once again.
I think my right hand needs to be faster here.
Sharper fingers, higher fingers for more clarity. very good, but you're not respecting the staccati. The staccati are not short enough, not sharp enough.
Okay.
You have to bite into these things, and we have to have a real contrast, a real textural contrast between
So
the
all
staccati.
of these, like 16 notes, what are they with staccato?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he's giving you this big phrase, da da da, against which he's barking with this B motive, which he has aggrandized and turned into thirds and then into chords. So that these bees are knocking, or whatever it is now, this monster is knocking into your brain. It's gnawing at your brain. All right? All right,
Yeah.
keep going, please.
Okay. Well, I'm on the fortissimo, okay? This.
No. Take it from the piano, about 20 meters back.
From the piano. Okay, yes.
Piano. That's not piano. Melika, that's not piano. You're playing forte. He writes piano.
But I have one note to come to fortissimo. It's weird. Wait. Should I keep this note, these two notes in piano, or like they could be a bit louder?
Keep it in piano because there's a lot of noise coming.
Okay.
Just before un peu retenu, you can make an accelerando. And you can go to as loud as you want. Make an accelerando and then hold it back as he writes.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Should I repeat that and continue or? Huh? What did you play, sorry? Which part?
4 measures before un peu retenu.
1, 2, 3, okay. Okay, that's a bit crazy. Just a second. I need to organize this.
he does not give you any pedal indication until three
Yes.
measures before the 3/4 section. You're not to use the pedal for that entire section from the previous fermata.
So from here.
No pedal at all. All right? Until three measures before quarter note equals eighth note du mouvement précédent. All right?
Okay.
So please take it three measures before du mouvement précédent.
1, 2, 3.
Pianissimo. Pianissimo. Really. Bravo, really. But first of all, the last little run, much clearer. If anything, a tiny bit slower, so that we hear every single note, every single interval and note very sharply.
Yes.
In my edition, 2 pages before the end and 3 measures before, when he goes to piano subito. Look at the last piano subito, please. It would be probably about 50 measures before the end.
Wait, 2 pages before the end?
Right here.
This.
Yeah. A Luftpause before you get to this piano subito.
Okay.
And if he says piano, remember his piano is not ours. Pianissimo subito.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
Yes.
keep the left hand as quiet as you can because you're going to need on the right hand to get the melody out. En retenant un peu, just hold it back a little bit. When he gets up to the very top in the climax with triple forte, un peu moins vif, a little bit more slowly, a tiny bit slower.
Okay.
Right? Now, and then when you have the ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, don't hold on to them. Keep the tempo. Because each time you're slowing it down, you're giving much too much time. For example, at the next fortissimo, da-dee-dum, that dotted eighth note is way too long. He doesn't write ritardando, he never writes espressivo. So play through it. All right? And when you get down to the rising chords from piano all the way up, keep the tempo. Da-da-dum is never to be it's never espressivo. It's absolutely horrifying. There's nothing horrifying about an espressivo.
Okay.
All right?
Yes.
Now the last entrance of the voice in the tenor part.
Yes.
He writes marqué et expressif. For the first time you really see an expressif, but don't overdo it. You want portamento there.
Yes.
And very quiet and very, very, very delicate all the way to the end. When he
Yes.
writes sans ralentir, 4 measures before the end, you have to be slow enough to be able to take it at the same tempo from there to the end so that everything is very clear. So please take it from the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But 45 bars before the end, right? Sorry. Yeah.
This part.
That's too fast. It's too fast.
But then I need to take from there 44 bars a bit slower, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, but then if I have, wait, then I need a Luftpause there. Because if I play this in tempo,
Just slow it down. Beautiful, wonderful. Just keep it very sharp and very, very clear.
yes,
All right.
yes.
Congratulations. It's really going to be fantastic when you get it going, when you get it, when you master it completely. You will need about, I'd like to hear the whole suite at the end of the summer, once again. But it's going to be absolutely wonderful. You'll need to perform it in public about 20 times before you have it under control completely with an audience. That's the
Yeah.
general rule, 20 public performances, and then it belongs to you. So
Yeah,
thank you
that's
for
a bit
playing for us.
difficult now.
Thank you for playing for us. It was really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was really great. I mean, many new ideas and like a fresh, you know, fresh ideas. I don't need to say anything else. It's really wonderful.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Have a good summer and keep in touch.
Yes, of course, of course.
Bye-bye, Melika. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining
Bye.
us. The next class is on June 10th, July 10th.
Okay.